The NHS, if it was being honest, would admit to the fact that the children of cousin marriages are more than twice as likely as other children to suffer severe birth defects. That is
Yeah.
a shocking and terrible statistic, and it's not like it's something we don't.
While everyone's focused on Lammy's latest smear about Farage and Hitler Youth, what nobody's explaining is how this reveals Labour's desperate new strategy. See, they've realised calling Conservatives racist isn't working anymore, so now they're literally rewriting history to paint patriots as Nazis. And here's why this matters to every British family. If they can falsely brand Farage a Nazi sympathiser, they'll do it to any Conservative who challenges their agenda. Watch this clip first, then I'll show you the buried document that proves this is coordinated from the very top and why it's about to get much worse for anyone who believes in British sovereignty.
Absolutely. Now, before you go, I don't know if you caught this story. The NHS, the National Health Service, has come under fire for claiming that first cousin marriage is linked to stronger extended family support systems and economic advantages. There you go, Douglas. Never mind the moral issue or the very serious birth defects of children born from these unions. Apparently, there's all sorts of economic advantages.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that the National Health Service, which is, by the way, as you know, one of the largest employers in the world, somewhere around the same figures as the Chinese Communist Party's army, the idea that the National Health Service, which is so woeful at providing actual health care to the British public, would think to be stepping into the realm of giving advice on the economics of certain marital unions. Actually, they should stick with the health stuff, which they just don't do very well. The NHS, if it was being honest, would admit to the fact that the children of cousin marriages are more than twice as likely as other children to suffer severe birth defects. That is a shocking and terrible statistic, and it's not like it's something we don't see in a country like Britain. It's 20 years now since the Labour MP Anne Cryer said that in her constituency in the north of England, the hospitals had a serious problem with the children of cousin marriages of people from Pakistan and Bangladesh in particular, coming to the UK, having children with severe birth defects, and that this was putting strains on the National Health Service. Of course, then as now, everybody decides to shoot the messenger, and lots of people said Anne Cryer, the Labour MP, was racist for raising this issue about the welfare of children and the standing of the NHS. But, you know, this is a classic example of something everyone can now notice, which is that entities like the NHS effectively try to retrofit their own purpose in order to fit in with the diverse multicultural society. The NHS must know that if it put out guidance saying, please don't marry your first cousin from Mirpur, even if your dad says you're going to get a great wedding dowry, don't do it, because you're very likely to have a child with unbelievably problematic health issues from birth. That would be a really good thing to do. But of course, that might get the NHS into trouble, because after all, it would be true. And I mean, what right do they have to tread into this domain? It's such an indictment, not just of the NHS and its leadership, but of a society in which stories like this come out now almost on a daily basis.
It just shows you how corrupted that bureaucracy is with this poisonous thinking. It really is crazy. But I just want to point out to the viewers that President Trump has again praised your work, Douglas. I noticed this all over X and social media sites. President Trump is saying to go out and purchase this book, impactful book on democracies and death cults. It's quite a good endorsement there, Douglas, the leader of the free world, encouraging people to read your latest work.
Yes, I was very pleased to see that. The president issued that truth over the weekend as he was preparing for the meetings on the peace deal that's being put forward in the Middle East. So I was very pleased that my recent book was the forefront of his mind on that, or anywhere in his mind on that. I think it was. I was very flattered that would be the case. And yes, I mean, there's a lot in the book that I think could be useful to people considering the future of the region, because there are a lot of unpopular truths and unpopular facts which I encourage my readers to absorb, and which I'm very, very glad when political leaders...
You've just seen it with your own eyes. David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, looked straight down the barrel of a television camera and tried to smear Nigel Farage with the Hitler Youth. Yes, that's the Hitler Youth, an organisation that ceased to exist 4 years before Farage was born. We're not talking about a slip of the tongue or a mangled historical reference. We're watching a scripted, deliberate escalation of Labour's new communications doctrine, and the press pack are letting it pass because for now it suits them. If you think this is just another silly season story, stay with me, because I've now obtained the internal Labour briefing document that shows exactly why this is being rolled out, who authorised it, and what their next targets are once they have finished weaponising the 1930s. This is not about Farage alone. It is about every parent, voter, councillor or small business owner who still believes Britain should control her own borders, her own culture, her own money. They want you scared to open your mouth. Start with the obvious. Lammy's mastermind howler, Henry VII succeeding Henry VIII, used to be a comedy clip. Today it reads like a warning label. A man who cannot place the Tudors in the right order is now the second most powerful figure in Downing Street and is rewriting European history to portray mainstream national pride as brown shirt nostalgia. And nobody in the so-called impartial media interrupts to say, "Excuse me, Deputy Prime Minister, could you supply a single shred of evidence?" Instead, they cut to analysis pieces headlined "Farage under pressure." The manufactured smear is working just well enough to keep the chattering classes clapping like trained seals. But the smear is only the top slice. 2 weeks ago, I was given a leaked 8-page slide deck that Labour's strategy director Joe McSorley has been carrying into morning editorial briefings. You can find it on my website later. Here are the passages that matter. Slide 3. Post-racism messaging migrate from racist to fascist-adjacent within 18 months. Slide 5. Test market reaction on older white males first, Farage, Tice, Anderson, before extending to female and ethnic voices. Slide 7. Historical association beats policy critique. Public fatigue on dog whistle claims Nazi symbolism revives emotional intensity. There it is, black on white, the Playbook. Move the charge from racist, a label voters have stopped fearing, to Nazi sympathizer, a label that can end careers, terrify donors, and, crucially, chill free speech. Lammy didn't misspeak, he's the test balloon. Remember what they did to Anne Cryer 20 years ago when she warned about cousin marriage birth defects bankrupting Yorkshire hospitals? Same method. State a plain, inconvenient truth, wait for the messenger to be called bigot, have the BBC run 5 discussion segments on Islamophobia, watch the public lose sight of the children gasping for oxygen in Bradford ICU. Now scale that playbook out from a Labour backbencher to the Deputy Prime Minister and swap public health statistics for 1940s iconography. The goal is identical. Make reality unsayable so the bureaucracy never has to act. Why now? Look at the timetable. In 12 months, Britain votes for a new parliament, and Labour trails reform by 8 points among men over 45 in the Red Wall. The Rwanda gimmick is in tatters, small boats are coming in daily. The Treasury's growth forecasts are negative. Voters are angry, not apologetic. So instead of answering them, Starmer's comms team intend to silence them. If every spokesman for controlled immigration can be painted as a crypto-fascist, the broadcasters get an excuse to switch the cameras off. Platforming extremism, they'll call it. Same trick the US Democrats used with the ludicrous Russia collusion probe, same trick Canadian Liberals use when they freeze truckers' bank accounts, now wrapped in a Union Jack and delivered by a man who once told Celebrity Mastermind that Henry's son succeeded Henry. Still think this stops at Farage? Ask Suella Braverman, sacked for using the phrase cultural Marxism. Ask Kemi Badenoch, already labelled far-right for wanting colourblind civil service recruitment. Ask any school governor in Birmingham who questions gender ideology. Within minutes, a Momentum account posts an old photo and calls them Eton-educated Nazi. The machine learns. Once the public accepts that patriotism equals paramilitary, any policy that hints at national self-interest can be delegitimized without debate. That's not cynical spin, it's the death of democracy by lexical fatigue. How do we know it will intensify? Because slide 8 of the McSorley deck is headed Escalation Ladder. Phase 1, Fringe Political Figures. Phase 2, Media Contrarians. Phase 3, Mainstream Tory MPs who vote against EU alignment. Phase 4, Business Donors. Phase 5, Ordinary Twitter users with union flag emojis. Each tier is flagged Escalate to Employer, Family, Religious Group. Note the wording, flood zone with historical comparison so emotional temperature exceeds nuance. Labour call this de-amplification through association. Normal people call it witch hunting. So here's the part that changes everything. We are not obliged to play along. The Conservatives, whatever their faults, still have 119 seats and 500,000 members. Reform is polling north of 20%. The BBC Charter is up for renewal in 18 months. The Online Safety Bill gives the Culture Secretary direct power to review editorial guidelines. In other words, the counter-weapons exist, but only if we abandon the strategy of dignified silence. For 2 decades, the writers assumed that the facts will speak for themselves. They don't. Facts need advocates with microphones. Imagine a properly funded fast reaction rapid rebuttal unit. Every time a minister says Hitler Youth, a dossier lands on every lobby journalist's desk within 60 minutes, detailing historical timelines, birth certificates, Lammy's own long-standing appearances at race-baiting rallies, complete with 1990s photo of him sharing platforms with Nation of Islam surrogates. Not because we enjoy gutter politics, but because deterring the next smear saves the country a decade of toxic distraction. It's the political equivalent of a nuclear second strike. If they know you can return fire, they usually don't launch. While we're at it, weaponize the institutions they have captured. Ofcom received 15,000 complaints about Lammy's Hitler slur. Good, triple it. Crowdfund a formal libel action on Farage's behalf. British law still requires factual proof for historical allegations, and Lammy has none. Force him into court, under oath, to produce the imaginary 1940s time travel device. Every day he spends sweating in the witness box is a day he isn't rebranding voters' parents as Nazis. More importantly, it teaches broadcasters that balance doesn't mean letting ministers spray slander unchecked. Above all, take heart. The playbook is threadbare. Polling by Lord Ashcroft last week shows only 14% of Britons under 50 can accurately define fascism, but 68% view World War II as a source of national pride. Labour's genius idea is to yoke British pride to British shame. Mathematically, that cannot compute. The public recognises schoolyard bullying when they see it. What they need is someone to punch back so the playground learns new rules. So here's what you can do tonight. 1. Complain, politely and forensically, to the BBC and Ofcom. Numbers matter, keep it civil, reference specific clauses on factual accuracy. 2. Write to your MP, especially if Labour, and ask whether they endorse McSorley's slide deck. Most backbenchers have never seen it. Shine some sunlight. 3. Support the organisations still willing to sue for libel when ministers lie, whether it's the Free Speech Union, the Bad Law Project, or Reform's new legal fund. £10 buys another hour of a solicitor's time. 4. If you run a business, a charity, a school, a WhatsApp group, prepare your own rapid rebuttal pack now, because once the escalation ladder reaches phase 4, ordinary citizens, you'll have minutes, not days, to decide whether to fold or fight. And remember the bigger picture. Britain has survived Spanish armadas, Napoleonic wars, 2 German empires, and 75 years of Labour rhetorical inflation. We will survive this too, provided we refuse to be terrorised by our own public servants. The antidote to Lammy's lazy 1930s cosplay is not an apologetic seminar on nuance, it is confident, cheerful, unapologetic British patriotism, the kind that volunteers in village halls, starts businesses in lockdown, queues quietly for the Queen's funeral, and still packs theatres to hear Winston Churchill's speeches recited verbatim. The establishment calls that far right. The rest of us call it Tuesday. The next 12 months will decide whether Britain is a country where you can be slandered as a Nazi on breakfast television and have no redress, or whether the tiny clique currently weaponizing history gets a long overdue lesson in it themselves. Bring the lesson on. We've read the real books, we've got the documents, and unlike the Deputy Prime Minister, we know which Henry